Really artistic podcast.
Yeah.
What is a podcast?
It's a good question. It's culture. It's everything. Everything is podcasts. Just like everything is becoming crabs in nature, everything in media is becoming podcasts.
Yeah, it's true.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sand. It's gonna get you some in the end.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Sother Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson, and we have more depressing news for you. Apparently, Schlitz is ceasing operations. I know. I don't know if you saw this. It is end of an era. Been around for what is it, over 100 years at this point?
Yeah, and a real like staple in the dive bar scene all over the country. And there's a couple of bars, Snake and Jake's down in New Orleans, where I used to live. It's the sort of tent pole that they hold their whole operation up around Schlitz beer. So it's a real bummer to see it go, especially out from under places that kind of really rely on it.
Yeah, really rely on it. And also just we were just talking before the show about evolutionary bygones. It does kind of feel like it's from a simpler era, right? It feels very much like a coelacanth from the pre-craft beer world where things were maybe not as much variety. Although, actually, you know what? I don't know. I don't think we have variety now because I was in the beer section of a local grocery store here in Brooklyn recently. Yeah. It was a whole fucking wall. And if you wanted a hazy IPA or a Mexican lager, boy, were you in luck. If you wanted anything else, fuck you. We don't do that here. Yeah. So I think maybe it's sad to see that we're letting go of these staples, these American staples, and not really getting too much in return.
And especially, Schlitz has a huge history. The beer that made Milwaukee famous. This is going to be a big hole in the pantheon of American beers. And I think I'm hopeful actually that someone's going to sweep in and pick it up. Just because a brand like this decides to cease operations doesn't mean that they're not willing to sell said operations, or at least sell the name to another brewery and another brewery, or just pick it up. So I don't think the story's over. But,
I agree.
But currently they have ceased operations. There's no more being made. Whatever you have, and then it'll be gone.
Fingers crossed that is not the end of the story. But I don't want to belabor this point too much because we've been doing downer news for a while, both here.
We have, yeah.
On the show and on our phones. And I'm kind of sick of it. So I actually want to continue on a conversation that we touched on and sort of meandered down and then meandered back during our monthly after hours hangout, which we had on Monday. These things are fun. We do them for our Patreon regulars. They're kind of part AMA, part live stream, part karaoke style drink along with us kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Just a chance to kind of like hang out, jump in the chat, ask us questions. We'll kind of talk about some things that are on our mind. Give us a chance to go a little deeper and a little bit more freeform into our thoughts about things in the industry. And one thing that we touched on that I want to drill a little deeper into because I thought it was a fun discussion is someone asked us what we thought about Fruity Pebbles cereal milk washing for cocktails. And I'm trying to remember because this was toward the end of our live stream. So there was a lot of sake and martini in my bloodstream. What was your take on this, Sother? Refresh my memory here.
I'm going to have to maybe jog my own memory. I definitely do recall us talking about milk washing, specifically Fruity Pebbles cereal milk washing, because I mentioned that I had a friend who was doing something like that with a Ramos Gin Fizz riff some years ago. I think I remember. My general stance was, I don't really remember what the hell we were talking about. We were talking about flavored vodkas. We were talking about Pinnacle whipped cream vodka and Pinnacle Swedish fish vodka,
yeah, which I had not known about up until that point.
Yeah, and I said, when I was the president of the local USBG chapter here in New York City, I sort of spearheaded a campaign to try and get those things stopped being made because I think that that's patently advertising to children. If you're an adult and you want birthday cake vodka, you can go out and buy vodka and you can buy a birthday cake and have at. We don't need to make Swedish fish vodka. That is absolutely targeting children. So then I think somehow from there we got into the milk washing and somehow Fruity Pebbles came up, and I don't remember exactly where that thing went, but it was a lively and spirited conversation. And I think that if you are not a member of our Patreon, you should consider it because you can hang out with Greg and I once a month and we can talk about crazy things like this.
Yeah, exactly. You can ask us weird questions like what we think about this. And my stance on this is that if you think that washing your cocktail with cereal milk is really going to give it something that it could not get anywhere else. Like I'm thinking like Honey Nut Cheerios, right, have a very distinctive flavor. And I'm trying to cast my mind back 30 years in the past to the days when I ate cereal, but like that milk has a very distinctive flavor that you really kind of can't get anywhere else. And if you want to wash a cocktail with that, I bet you're going to get something that's going to add an element that you really couldn't get by playing around with any other flavors. And if that's what you're doing, go for it. But Fruity Pebbles, from what I recall, are basically just sugar, just corn and sugar. And that's it.
It's rice, isn't it? I don't even know what
is it. I don't fucking, it's candy. It's candy is what it is. Like, in fact, I remember from when I was living in Scotland, they had these very distinctive and interesting types of food stores that were specifically American candy stores. They were all Pepto-Bismol pink, and they had big fiberglass statues of like the Statue of Liberty and Fat Elvis inside of them. And they had all of the unhealthy sugary crap that we consider food that in the rest of the world is candy. So if you want to go and get Pop-Tarts or Twix or Mountain Dew, or these are not hypothetical examples. These are all things that they have in there. Or like some of these cereals, like Fruit Loops, like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, like Fruity Pebbles, that's where you have to go. They don't have them in the grocery store where food lives. They have them in these stores where candy lives.
Yeah.
And if you're using that to milk wash, I don't know, that just kind of feels like you're playing on millennial nostalgia, which is a really, really cheap target. That's shooting fish in a barrel. And maybe you should do something a little less lazy. I think that's where I come down on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to, as I say all the time, everything deserves its seat in the Pantheon. We are not required to sit in every seat. But, you know, these kind of things belong, but I don't think that they need to dominate. You know, I think our conversation drifted to the notion about milk washing in general becoming a little bit of jump the shark, right? You know, I think I mentioned being at a bar and seeing, you know, a menu of only about 12 cocktails and 4 of them were milk washed. And I'm like, well, you're really kind of crutching along with this thing, you know? But then I pointed out my own foibles, which is my bar only stirs drinks, you know, so I'm only offering the one texture as well. But I don't know. The conversation was lively and fun, and we had a lot of people who were chiming in and asking us questions. I think it was the best one so far, and I think that's true every time. They're getting better, right? So we only do them once a month, so even after a year, we've only got 12 in the can. But yeah, so I think the long and short of this opening message is join our Patreon.
Yeah, join our Patreon. It only gets better. And speaking of people who only get better with time,
let's
in
go.
the studio with us today, we have the co-founders of Studio Ryecroft. They are a Singapore-based concept and culture consultancy. It's Tom Hogan and Bobby Carey. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for zooming in from literally the opposite side of the world. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, like exactly, right? 12-hour difference.
Exactly. Well, it depends on the time of the year when you go into that dark period where you change the hour, and then I have to remember.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I'm calling my parents far too late or far too early.
Where we get to sleep in for an hour, but then the sun sets at 4 p.m. It's not an even trade, people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to begin with a question that I think it is important to ask anyone who self-identifies as a consultant. What is it that you do exactly?
It's the never-ending question, right?
Exactly.
You know, a consultant is something that was, I suppose, foisted upon the industry, that the part of the industry, that the segment of the industry we work in, and it's something that we've kind of, in the 7-8 years I've been doing it, post stepping out from behind the bar. I see the word consultant as more of the caregiver. I think what we do is we go in and we help bars who are failing. We help bars who are needing our support, or we also help ownership, our hotel groups, or more larger chains, because independent people don't really need this sense. They don't need the attention to detail because it's their passion project. So it's us going in and bridging that gap between what ownership wants, what the operations can actually handle in a hotel, and then layering a concept onto that, because oftentimes there's this huge disconnect from what the designer will actually come up with. Designer comes in, this bar is concepted by strands of pearls from a gown that was found 200 years ago. And we have to try and interpret that and then go, okay, we're going to take all this information, everyone's wants and needs, And the consultation comes is that then we handhold and we care give from start to finish in those projects, making sure that every aspect is paid attention to.
Before I get Tom's answer to this question, I want to ask that string of pearls. That doesn't sound like an example that you just pulled out of thin air. Was that a real concept you did?
We've heard. We've had one before that was. It was reams of fabric. Was a concept that the designer came up with, and they designed a room about that, and we had to then retrofit an actual concept into that. Which was one of Tom's ones, actually. Tom, if you want to talk,
it was not necessarily reams of fabric, and like the other part to that, like to give this example, because it is probably burned into my memory specifically as well, because it was 2 months really that we had to kind of be those caregivers and take it over the line and give it a completely new identity. But to make it even worse, it was actually based off of a chandelier that was put into the space. So the chandelier was kind of the thing that was built around, which had this weaving quality. And so then that kind of took on the space, the name of the room and the concept, so to speak. That's what was given to it. And so when we came in, we're like, but what does that mean? How do we translate that? And so like Bobby said, it's the having like, because obviously consultants get the bad, image of just people who come in blindly, but on the backside of our consulting years, we are bartenders, right? So we understand the functionality of working behind a bar and how to actually do it. And we're also deeply ingrained into the artistry in the craftsmanship of our industry. So what we're going to do is project upon there and try to make the best space we possibly can and create the best story.
Somewhere in your materials, I saw the phrase, guests feel culture before they understand it. And this seems like it might be kind of your mantra. Can you kind of dive a little bit more into that statement?
I think culture is so intangible when it comes to a bar, right? You walk into a bar, anyone who's worked in the industry, you walk into a bar, within 5 seconds, you know it's a good space, right? And it's things you can't intrinsically touch. It's the audio, it's the scent, it's the lighting, it's the atmosphere, it's the ambiance, it's the sound baffling that creates that space, and everything that walks into that room is the culture that you feel, right? And our mantra, which is something we've kind of stumbled upon, I think, when we start putting together our decks, is from concept to culture. Because what we do is we put that concept on a page and we present that. This is like this call now. I'm on a call and I'm presenting to ownership. And I'm telling him, this is what's going to be in your bar. And they haven't got a clue, right? Because they don't even know what I'm talking about half the time. Because they've never been or experienced a space like that. So we have to build out that concept through like 40 plus decks through the life of a project. But bringing it to culture is what we mean is that we want that bar to become the city's living room. We want it to become a community space in that bar that stands the test of time, because we all see it. We all see flash in the pan bars open up, and all they're doing is they're chasing a spirited award, or they're chasing a red scarf, right? And their whole concept is to win an award, and that's it. And people come to us a lot and asking for that as well. And we're like, that's not what we do. We've had great success doing that throughout the years, but what we want to do is build a bar that I can show my kids in 20 years' time. Oh, I did that. This space has been there for 20 years. And you think of all the great bars in New York, great bars in London. You think of Raffles over here in Singapore. You think of Atlas, which is kind of almost hitting that territory now as well. And you go to Ireland even, right? You go to the great pubs of Ireland, right? Anywhere like that. That's what we want. We want those bars to stand the test of time, and then bringing them from that kind of first draft all the way into the city vernacular. I think that's most important.
This segues really nicely into a big project that you two have been undertaking recently that I'm really, really excited to talk about because it sounds rad. Bar Cap is the project that I'm talking about. It is a concept you're building out inside of a 140-year-old Singaporean national monument. Now, I want to hear about all the stuff that you're talking about here. Like, how do you make it into the city's living room? How do you even think about something as pedestrian sounding, important, but pedestrian sounding, as sound baffling inside of a place with this majesty? But I want to start just by asking how you landed that gig. I'm assuming it was not from a LinkedIn ad.
Actually, we went through a transitional flux about a year ago. A company we used to work for shut down, right? Which is also a distribution company here in Singapore. And we were kind of Tom and I obviously were at a loose end, right? Because in Singapore it's quite strict, right? So in 60 days you have to leave the country. That's it. If your contract, your employment pass is done, you're gone.
Dang.
And yeah, it's tough, right? And we both have Singaporean partners as well, right? So it's kind of like, well, but if you're not married, then it's tough. See you later. So it's quite hard, right? So we, luckily enough, actually, someone Tom had worked with 15 years ago in a bar when Tom moved over here was looking for someone to come through and do that. And the company we used to work with, we were always kind of in the shadows. We never really talked about it. We didn't go public. We didn't go live. We didn't do PR. We didn't even, the hotels we worked with never really talked about us because they wanted to claim those projects for themselves. And they didn't want to say that, we actually had helped to do that. Someone else conceptualized it. Someone else did our recruitment. Someone else brought our drinks together. And we were really fortunate to fall in with the actual ownership of the house. And it's not just, oftentimes we will deal with kind of like faceless corporations, or we deal with, ownerships who don't even live in Singapore. They live in an ivory tower, countries and flights away. And the first conversation Tom and I had was the actual daughter of the father who bought the house. And their goal was to refurbish this house. And so they bought this, I think, 3-4 years ago. And they pumped millions into getting this house back to its original 100. They bought it for millions, and they pumped millions going back into it as well, right? So they again, this is kind of like that give an F, right? They care about it, and that really attracted us to us as well. And I mean, we could talk for 2 days about this project, but it was a very kind of fortunate kind of series of events that became the first project we signed. And that really kind of gave us the spur we needed, I think, to go, okay, we can do this. Like, we're not going to have to leave the country, and we're not going to have to. I didn't even know where I would go back. Would I go to Australia? Would I go to Ireland? Tom, where were you going? What would we do? And we just kind of put our heads down. And I mean, it's about a 15-minute walk this way from my house. And I think we've probably spent more time there in the last 9 months than I have in our own house. We've just been in part of every single aspect of the house. Tom, I've been talking too much. The Willet is allowing me to
it's going to your head.
Yeah, I don't normally drink at night.
He really doesn't.
So you reserve that for the morning?
Yeah, pretty much. With my protein shake, I throw in some bourbon as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about all right, so that's how you kind of landed the gig, and that's how you get to stay in Singapore, and I'm happy to hear that. Don't like to see people get displaced. What went into building out the program, and what's the concept all about? Like, what are you putting into this, exalted space?
In terms of the program, it was one of the big things is that we knew that the history of the house was one of the most important parts that we couldn't get away from, and you don't want for it to be pastiche, and you don't want it to be costumey to take that on, but you can't get away from it. You have to tell that story. So within the menu, we actually broke it up into eras, and I think that's one of the other things. Over 140 years, yes, it's called the House of Tan Yak Ni, which is the actual building itself. It's never been open to the public, but it's been owned by multiple different people in between. So including like a station master for the first train yard that was just down the road, the Anglican Sisters, and then later on Salvation Army and TCM, which are traditional Chinese medicine house. So there's so many different layers to the home with the ownership that we thought that was the story we needed to tell, especially for the first menu, right? So the first menu that we put out here is really an impossible object. So each cocktail is associated with an object that would have been found at the home that relates to the people and the history of the home as well. So it was such a great and rich experience being able to kind of dive into it, and you find everything. Like one of the greatest moments that I had was even day one of just going into the house and seeing it for the very first time, having passed it for so many years, and then calling out the individual things, whether it's like the Quan Chi ceramics over the top, the Seco paintings that are going into it. I think they were kind of overwhelmed because they didn't realize we knew as much as we did, but we're also, suckers for history. And my background is in art, and Bobby's background is in film and with art as well. So we're very much along the lines where we want to do those kinds of things justice. And it's just been really a love story of that home and trying to find all of the beautiful storylines to pull out of it.
And there's also a professor attached to the house, and this is his book.
Not physically. He's not physically attached to the house, but yes, there
It's
is
not
a
like one of those
professor.
trees that just grew around a street sign. He's kind of like, he's become of the house.
It's very
Part of the
Harry
crew,
Potter.
part of the
Bobby.
ship or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's a gazetted monument, which is the highest architectural level you can have in Singapore, nothing physically designed could change without having to run past the professor first, and then he would pass it up to the NHB, the National Heritage Board. So everything had to kind of like, whether it's the texture of the paint, the color of the paint, what percentage of the floor tiles can be covered in any given room, what percentage of the grey boring tiles on the ceiling, which is one of the most nondescript part of the whole space. The National Heritage Board wanted to show off the most because it's the traditional style of Teochew tile, but it's really boring. It's probably the most boring. So they've had to like, there's so many other more exciting parts of the house, and they're like, no, these grey tiles, that's what you have to show off. And you're like, okay. So yeah, everything. We've been lucky enough to work in one other monument before, which is Raffles. And worked on the long bar there in Raffles, and well, Tom worked on that. But this one was where we actually kind of like, okay, it's us, it's ownership, and it's against the National Heritage Board, and we're doing everything together. So yeah, it's been very, very fun to put it together. I can't even describe. Probably one of the best projects I think I've ever done in 25 plus years. Actually, sorry, it's 30 years now.
Easily
30 years next year is of hospitality. Yeah.
And I know, like, Sother, you talk about this as well in previous podcasts where, the best creativity comes with the borders that are put in place, those guidelines. And that's, even though it sounds like a negative thing where we have to work against all of these restrictions, it actually makes it better, right? Because then you think a little bit deeper, a little bit harder, you find another angle, and that's the approach that you kind of take. So it's been a really rewarding project.
Yeah. Constraints breed creativity, man.
Yeah, they really do. And Bar Cap is currently open, yes?
10 days.
Ago.
10 days.
So all right, 10 days. So we don't have a lot of data here, but how is it being received? And do you think that the guests are aware even of the depth of thought you put into it, or are they just enjoying a good bar?
10%.
And does that
maybe.
matter?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So when we build these programs, and I think it's when any bartender is building their menu, they know that it's layered with the customer experience of knowing that 90% of the guests who walk in are just looking for exactly what they want. And then that 10% are actually going to get the little jokes and the quips and the deeper knowledge that's kind of built into it. And then you have that even finer, like the 1% who are really going to geek out about like any specific spirit combinations or what kind of ingredients or techniques you're actually using. So just last night, for example, like it's been capped in terms of reservations. No pun intended, cap. But it was around like 30 or 40 that they were supposed to be having in there, and they ended up with 93 in the room. So it was great to actually see the room like really buzzing all night. And the cocktails were just kind of streaming out, and it was largely a Singaporean audience, which is quite unique, especially in Singapore, to have that kind of all at once, all from the very beginning. And so what we're seeing is that people are really connecting with the heritage site, and the fact that it is the first time they're ever able to get into this beautiful home. They're definitely taking advantage of it.
And on that percentage point as well, right? It's like that one guest a night that comes in and turns your plate upside down to look and see what the brand is, or that one guest that Shazams a track that you put together. You get more of a sense of pride from that, because you're like, I picked that. Like that's literally my vision, and that person
and
wants
fear.
Yeah, but that person wants to emulate that, or they want a version of that for themselves. And that, I think that's when we know we've touched someone, right? That's when we know we've kind of brought that to market, and it's not just a generic hotel bar, which you see in so often places. I think that's the ones, this bar could quite easily have just become like quite a hollow bar space if there wasn't so much thought and love put into it.
Those are, in a lot of ways, the most rewarding interactions that you have, right? Those are the ones that almost kind of keep you going, where it's like I've definitely put drinks on the menu where I'm like, this is going to be ordered half a dozen times before we flip this. But for the people who are really going to be into what this concept is, they're going to love it. And when they do order it and are like, this is great, you're just like, see, I do it for you. I do it for the real heads, the weirdos who are into the stuff like this, man.
100%.
And this is a great chance to talk about execution, actually, because we've been talking a lot about building out these concepts, and now BarCap has been live for almost 2 weeks now, and I want to hear a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to running these things. You guys are very much systems people, and I would love to hear what your thought process is in terms of not only building out these great concepts, but then sticking around and seeing them through and making sure that everything is clicking the way it's supposed to.
I love that. The fact that the perspective is that we are systems people, because it is true. We live and die by the systems that we've created. I kind of see myself definitely as more of the flighty, and Bobby can probably attest to this as well. Not necessarily flighty, but somebody who kind of tunes into it. And I am very much in the trenches, and I want to see and feel everything that's going on. So I honestly I feel like every single project we do is different. So regardless of the systems that we have in place, beforehand, it's that great prep work in the back that allows us to then make sure that we're able to quickly adjust on the fly and to do anything that we need to do in the venue. But so I definitely do feel like there's more of for me, the response is more tactile in the bar, not just the systems.
But everything that and to kind of build on that, everything that we do, right, it culminates with opening. And it culminates with generally about 6 weeks or 3 months after opening. We'll go back in and we'll do the Studio Ryecroft standards, which is kind of our 380 point scoring system of the space, based across kind of 20 different tenants of the actual venue. And that gives the team fully tangible data where they can see point blank, they're falling down here, they're doing really good up here. But it also gives them a roadmap of how to fix that. And that's kind of what the system, but the only reason that they're going to be falling down from the opening to that six weeks or 3 months time is because of concept drift, or because they're not adhering to those systems we put in place. Because if they're following the systems that are put in place, and they're following the trainings, and they're following everything that's there, everything should be on point. And we've all seen that. You've all seen spaces that open amazing, opening team leave. One person's gone, that kind of the wind blows out of the sails. All of a sudden, things aren't going right anymore. Drinks aren't coming out, same consistency, timing's gone, the chat's not there, and you just feel it when you walk into a space. And that's the kind of that concept. Someone comes in, they're like, "I've got a great idea. I'm going to change the playlist. We're going to put on honky tonk music instead." And you're like, "Yeah, but that doesn't really justify. That doesn't make sense in anything else. Everything's had thought put into it." And I think that's when we kind of create these bars and these spaces. It's like, I kind of will come up with the idea, and Tom will be the human person who puts it into it, because Tom's got a lot more patience than I do.
I was just going to say patience, calm.
Tom will smile in the face of my face. Can't, if I'm angry with someone, I'm not going to hide it, right? It's just I don't believe in star signs, but I'm a bull, I'm a Taurus, and everyone tells me I'm quite like one. I'm like, no, if you annoy me, yeah, it's done. Whereas Tom would be like, that smile stays. Look at Tom's smile. It never shifts.
It's really true. It's there all the time.
No, I'm the exact same way. I will be in conversations and I'll get the "oh, you don't approve" thing, and I'll have to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did my face momentarily betray what I was feeling on the inside?"
Yeah, intense hatred.
Yes. I was informed recently that I have a disappointed producer face on another podcast, and I was just like, "Oh, well, now that I know I have no poker face, I'll try and just kind of do every recording like this." If you're hearing the sound of my voice right now, I've got some bad news for you. You are only getting about 60 to 70% of the conversation that we had today with our guest. But if you want to hear the whole thing, you can join us and become a regular on our Patreon.
That's right. To hear the rest of the conversation, join us on our Patreon, become one of our regulars, and you'll receive all kinds of perks, including ad-free listening, so you won't have to hear us do this again.
And in addition to ad-free listening and longer shows, you are also going to get cocktail recipes from all of our guests, access to our live monthly hangouts, and a free cocktail kit each and every month from our good friends at Shaker and Spoon.
So head over to Patreon and become a regular of the Speakeasy. We'd love to have you there. Cheers. Well, let's talk about we always want to, of course, champion successes and things like that. But let's talk about maybe some foibles or failures. Have you ever encountered a project where the concept just wasn't jiving, and what do you do if it looks like you're going to have to really remove one of the main pillars of a concept to make something work.
Oftentimes it is about having that kind of sense check, right? It's we've actually only had one project, I think, in the 8 years, no, well, however many years I've been doing it now, where we've kind of, after a couple of years in, had to have a sense check and go, this is not necessarily the best thing to do. And the first project I did when I joined my old company was a dystopian neotropical rooftop garden in the sky. And we opened it. 3 weeks later, COVID. So there's this everything, literally this whole space. This is in the middle of Bangkok. This is a beautiful rooftop bar. It was neon colors, and it was called Paradise Lost. It was great, right? It was beautiful. It was set over multiple levels, views of the whole of Bangkok, but everything was kind of like dystopian and a bit crazy. And there's a lot of like Mad Max, Blade Runners, taking all those influences coming through and doing it. And that place never really recovered because of that. And we tried.
We took the dystopian concept and applied it to the whole world.
Yeah.
And so that was one kind of, I mean, that's a lesson learned, but it's not a lesson you can really plan for, right? But that's why we put so much thought process into those before anything gets, the best work we can do is before ground is broken on a project. If we can get involved before a drawing is done, before an architectural planning is done, before MEP is done, before anything is done, we can create this space that we know is going to work in terms of a concept. And I actually don't think we've had another concept that has failed in all the time that we've been doing it.
And I would even say that was not a failure in that kind of a sense. It was just wrong place, wrong time. But then it's just adjusting. It's actually quite popular space now. The other areas that we've kind of seen, and I'm sure like Bobby and I are going through the Rolodex in our head of the bars that we've created over the years. And one that sticks out for me, it was probably one of my favorite concepts. And it was one of the hardest, like working, beautiful cocktails. Everything seemed to kind of nail it, but it was just the ownership on that side really didn't know how to actually take it and run with it. And it was just so obvious because I had actually opened up 2 bars in the same city with a 2-month window in between. One bar was like 2 months, or this bar, which I loved, and it was like my favorite concept. And then the 2 months later, the other bar, which was great, but I was more in love with the other one. It ended up like succeeding and continues to this day, whereas the other one closed within a matter of, I think, 2 years or so. And it really just had to do with leadership, management, and understanding how to actually utilize what was given to them, the tools and the resources that we had built for them.
But so often you're at the mercy of ownership, because some of these are playthings for people who are opening up 10 hotels at a time, and they mightn't even visit the hotel. They mightn't even know what's going on there, and so that's ownership going down through then asset management, going through the hotel management, going down to the operations, down to who we connect with. And we had a space here in Singapore where we spent 2 years during COVID working on it, putting it together. This amazing concept. It was all black lava stone, handmade bar counter, all these bits and pieces. It was all about creating the crazy colors you see in the depth of the jungle. A week before open, ownership came in and was like, no, I want to turn it into a nightclub. And they just flipped everything, and that was it. They just flipped it, and they're like, no, we're changing the concept. That's it. We'll keep the menu and the drinks, but now there's a Red Bull fridge in the back bar, in the middle of the back bar. You're like, okay, cool. So sometimes you're at the mercy, right? And sometimes, because to them, it's just like ticking a box sometimes of like, well, our hotel needs a restaurant and our hotel needs a bar. So let's just put something in there. And it's when you're speaking to ownership or you're speaking to someone in the kind of C-suite level, and they start speaking that language back to you, and they start speaking those kind of words, the concept and cultures that we talk about all the time, then you've got them. And once they kind of buy into that language, they push that onto their team even more and more and more. And you see it. You see it in like within the first or second meeting. You're like, okay, these guys get it. This is the team. This bar is going to be great because ownership is locked in, and everyone's going to be moving in the right direction.
It sounds almost like that's the job. The job is, obviously build a great space that people enjoy, that the guests enjoy, but the thing that's going to make these projects live or die at the end of the day is whether or not you can get that person you just talked about on board with your way of thinking about these spaces.
In the first 3 months of a project, it's one of the most important aspects, absolutely. Because if that's not there, because as I said, it's different than when you're working, it's a passion project, it's your own venue, because you're like, I can do all these things, I know what I'm doing. But if there's this misalignment at the first stage, all the other stages kind of flow, and they just kind of like, you're just falling over each other and knocking knees and breaking your shins against people, and you're fighting. It ends up being like, it ends up, sometimes you're actually fighting against people. You're like, you're paying me to give you a concept, and now you're fighting me because you don't want to do it. And you're like, I don't understand. Like where's the disconnect? So yeah, it is one of the most important aspects. I think it's having that concept we come up with and presenting it to the room. And once that gets signed off, is getting that, because sometimes we don't present to ownership. Sometimes it has to go up a level to ownership. There always is that buffer, right? There always is that little bits and pieces that can be really tough to do it. But it's the obsession that we love, and that's kind of like why we love doing it. It's why we keep doing it. I think my last job, when it all finished, there was like 35 live projects we were working on at one time.
Well, out of all the projects from the past that you've done, and maybe even you could describe maybe a future project that you'd like to do. Do you have a favorite? You mentioned they're like your children. They're like your kids. Do you have a favorite kid?
Bobby, I know you do, and I don't want to steal your thunder.
I don't want to give it away either.
Ooh, he does not want to sell that.
No,
you can see on his face. There's no poker face there. It's the tourist thing. You can see it. When you mentioned it was there.
He's like, shut up, Tom.
I've done this twice. In a couple months to him, and he's just like, hey.
I'm texting him on the side. You just can't see it. I'm texting him with my toes. There's one concept that I think, because it's not a real concept and it's something that doesn't exist in Ireland, and I want to kind of bring that outside of Ireland. Like, everyone knows the Irish pub, and everyone knows what that is, and that transcends boundaries, transcends languages, and it transcends everything. And apart from the Dead Rabbit, which is not my Ireland, it's a very different form of Ireland. I think there's no other like Irish home of drinking. There's not, and I think the Dead Rabbit is kind of a catch-all. It has the beautiful bar. It's got the even more fun pub, right? But there is no international Irish cocktail bar. There's no standard for an international Irish cocktail bar. And there's this period in Ireland, post independence, when we finally took back the ownership of most of our country from the British, and Ireland post World War II, and there was this kind of like, there was still these kind of colonial leftovers, but there was these still kind of nice hotels coming through, and I want to have this kind of imaginary Irish cocktail bar of that time and that era, a space that I think no one. It's a very kind of very niche project, but I think it's something that actually could translate anywhere, because everyone, you think about Irish pub, you think about having a good time, and it's almost kind of ingrained in people's psyches. And it's much like when you see spaces like Barleone, for example, like everything in that space screams Lorenzo. Is like, this is me, this is my history. They had to remove it, but there used to be this bench outside, because people they were like, oh, that's for the queue. And I was like, Lorenzo, the queue is 5,000 people now. Like, you're not going to fit him on this 4-seater bench. He's like, that's what the old men used to sit on outside the pubs in Rome. I don't know if I should say this one, but there's 2 lights in the bathroom, and I don't know how true this story is, but he said his aunt works in the Vatican, and she took him in the vaults, and she sent him over to him. So there's these 2 lamps that are in the bathrooms that apparently come from the Vatican. So there's little bits and pieces. Yeah, if it's true, it's true. Lorenzo, I'm sorry if that's not true, or you didn't want that going out. But there's little fun aspects like that, right? I think where it screams authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I think if there was a concept that I ever wanted to do, it would have to be something that's super authentic to myself and Tom. And, by the way, Tom, like every American, claims to be Irish, so he has that little bit in him as well. So he does claim that as well.
Bobby, you're actually outnumbered here. There are 3 Americans on this call.
Not in Irish blood, I'm not. So there you go. So I think if there was one thing that we ever did ourselves, it would have to be something that was so well thought that I would actually hate to work for Tom and I as the operating that space, because we'd be
100%.
so pernickety about every. You're like, what are you doing? Don't touch that. What's that? This is not the right way. Because if it came to our passion, proper actual baby, would be tough to work for Tom.
Even just on that note, just yesterday, I was at Bar Cap. I was mopping the entire place before people came in there as well. I'm like, we're very hands-on, but it's also we're obsessive over those details of making sure that people are saying the right things going in there. It would be a terrible experience working for us, I think, because we'd just be over the top with our detail. But I'd be smiling. I would be smiling.
As direct employers, let's just put that part in, Tom. Not working with us. Yeah. Just because we care. Just because we care.
That's the thing. It's like when you care about something, you're signing up to do a lot more work than if you don't care. But I mean, what's the point of doing something if you don't give a shit about it, right?
Exactly.
Well, guys, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for jumping on the show, sharing your knowledge with us. Really cool conversation. We don't get to have conversations with a lot of people who do what you do. So I really appreciate you giving us an insight into this underexplored part of our industry. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to us, guys. It's been great. Love it.
And at the end of every show, we like to ask all of our guests, where are you drinking these days? Where are some good local spots you want to give a shout out to if people happen to be in your neck of the woods?
Local or global? I mean, you guys travel all over. You got
That's true.
You got a spot you want to mention?
Yeah, anywhere. Nowhere's off limits.
Most recently, obviously, when I was in Tokyo, I definitely give a shout out to Virtue, which I've already done. But then Tokyo Confidential. Going and seeing Tom and Holly there, if you know and love them as well. It's just a super fun vibe, and they're just changing around the menu. I was lucky enough to hit the cat menu just before it switched out. So I was like I was like, oh man, everything is just super cute, to be honest. But then locally, Side Door, which is Bonnie Kang. So Bonnie Kang and I used to work together at Antidote Bar years ago when we opened it in 2013 in Singapore. She went on to be world-class champion in 2019 and has since opened up her own place. She's just incredible in terms of her precision and the quality for her drinks. They're very like culinary and just really beautiful stuff. But love slipping down into this little bar that we have here called Hapsan. So Hapsan Social Club. June Beck used to work in hotels. I used to work with her multiple times, and then now she runs her own little spot, which is, I don't know, Bobby, how many seats? 8, 10? It's very, very small. It's just a little hole in the wall, but it's an absolute, like, you know, you just kind of love to melt into the walls there and kind of hang over people. It makes us feel like we're back in New York or back in Japan, you know, and we're like, yeah, sure, I'll stand here. That's fine.
It sounds more like a sauna, Tom. That sounds like a different type of bar.
Sounds like something you know. I don't know, Bobby. But then I also just love going to like the people I love as well. So Nicholas, do you guys know Nicholas Alexander? He used to be at 11 Madison. He was in New York for many, many years, but then he moved out here. He went to Writer's Bar, and then now he's at Atlas. So he's just one of my favorite makers in general. Like, I love his cocktails. He's just a fantastic mind, and he's a fun. He plays around with so much stuff. He's definitely someone that I actually like tend to follow wherever he goes. And we all have those people, those friends that we're just like, wherever you are, I'm going to find you. Right. You're going to make me a drink. You're going to make me the last thing that we had, and we'll pretend like it actually is the same thing.
Have you left any bars for me, Tom, at all, or are you just going to name every bar?
Sorry, Bobby. Bobby loves 7-Eleven.
Absolutely, because we can get Chosu highballs here for nothing.
Oh, wait, Bobby, and also tell them about our sandwiches that we would have as well at 7-Eleven. What is the Toasties? I don't think these guys know the amazing Bangkok Toasties.
Bangkok Toasty.
Tom's off on a tangent now. There's just very good fast food in Bangkok. Tom's had a couple. That's not a water bottle in front of Tom. It's actually a liter of martini he has.
All martini.
For me, there's a couple of really good bars in Singapore. Tom's mentioned a few, but Off Track is one of my favorite. Really fun listening bar. Great food, great team, great ambiance. I'm most excited actually about. I'm back to Ireland next week, and I'm going to sink a load of Guinness in a load of really good pubs. And I haven't really done that as an adult. I haven't really gone to Dublin and explored the famous bars. And then on the back end of Tales, I'm in New York, and I'm most excited about visiting Ian and Bar Snack, because the last time I talked to him, we were sitting having a Guinness at Dead Rabbit. Me, him, and Tim Hurley were sitting having a Guinness at the Dead Rabbit, and he was telling me about Bar Snack, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to come visit it. So I can't wait to go post Tails hangover, go experience Bar Snack.
I love that bar. I find myself in there about once a week, it seems. And there's a bit of nostalgia there for me. Pre-pandemic, that was the location that they're at was a restaurant called Local 94, and in the back of the restaurant was this tiny room that I operated, and it was called Blue Quarter. Had a little bar back there called Blue Quarter, which now they've converted, and now it's the little bar back there is called Little Snack. So you can sit in Bar Snack, or you can go in the back to Little Snack.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about. I just saw it pop up with Tails last year, and I haven't been to New York in a bit, so I'm very excited to go, because he and I used to shenanigan a lot back in Australia days, many years ago. So
Nice.
Technical term.
Yes, it's actually an Irish term, Tom. The shenanigans. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes. I did know that. You're right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds correct to me.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Well, guys, if our listeners wanted to follow along with your exploits, including your post-Tails travels, where can they find you on Instagram.com? Where's a good spot for them to follow you?
You can get me at runbobbyc or studio.ryecroft.
And studio.ryecroft or the Tom Hogan on Instagram.
Tom Hogan.
The one and only.
Really, I don't know how I got it, to be honest.
I don't know how I got Grog Benson, but no one else went on for that pot of gold. So, to the victor go the spoils, I guess. Gentlemen, this has been rad. Thank you so much for joining us. Really? I see that it is officially midnight over there. It is Thursday morning, so we will let you go. Appreciate you joining us. And that is going to do it for us this week on The Speakeasy. But if you are really, really going to miss us after we say goodbye, you can become a regular on our Patreon.
That's right.
Our regulars get ad-free shows, a longer show, cocktail recipes from all of our guests, and a new perk we're rolling out this month, a curated selection of seasonal bitters from Bitter Queens down in NOLA, which we were just talking about. They are an awesome LGBTQ company making amazing small batch bitters. So if you want to try some and support this show at the same time, swing on by and become a regular. When you do, you will also get access to our monthly after hours live hangouts where Sother and I get together in Meat Space to have a drink in real time. It is the last Monday of every month, meaning the most recent one was this week. If you missed it because of the holiday or potentially the Knicks game, the recording is up on Patreon. And the next one is happening Monday, June 29th. They're kind of AMAs, they're kind of live streams, they're kind of drink along sessions, and they're always fun. So if you want to join in next time, June 29th, sign up and become a regular today. And now, Sother, what's happening over at Sauced, man?
Yeah, the highly anticipated Sauced update.
Yes.
So Sauced, of course, my new show with Tim McCurdy, where we cook with booze and drink with food. The most recent episode that went up is smoked pork ribs, where we make I make a glaze for them using not just whiskey. I think anyone could make a whiskey barbecue sauce. I make it with whiskey, sweet vermouth, and bitters. So it's a Manhattan glaze on my smoked ribs. And then the next episode that's going to be coming up, we're going to be recording this week, is Clams Casino.
Nice.
Kind of digging into a sort of a classic shellfish recipe. And I think we're going to probably talk about cooking them on the grill because it is grill season, and that's where we're at.
Hell yeah. Check out Sauced, everybody, and be sure to tune in next week when our guest is Matthew Matty. He is a designer who builds bars. His latest project is Cafe Suzanne here in Brooklyn. Going to be really, really interesting to talk with him about design and function. So if you are a systems person like we are today, be sure to tune in for that. But until that time comes, cheers, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
So you don't charm the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his